My name's Marina Reimer, and I'm from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I'm passionate about food, culture, community, and a dumpster dive. I come from a Yugoslavian background. My grandparents moved around a lot. They never really had a solid home and had this mentality of making something out of nothing. During my childhood, my mom didn't really grocery shop much, and we didn't have much food in the house. We would get a lot of our food from the surrounding area, my grandparents' farm. My grandparents that lived in the city also had a garden. I guess part of that kind of led me to be okay with dumpster diving because I had to be resourceful as a young person. So as I got older, I was still using that same resourcefulness. The first time I saw somebody dumpster diving, I was walking down a back alley down Broadway, and there was a man in his 60s, and he was digging around in the dumpster, and his head just popped out. And he was like, "Hey, do you want some peppers?" And I was like, "Sure." So I walked over and I checked out the peppers, and everything looked fine. So he gave me some peppers, and I asked him why, why are you dumpster diving? You have a car, you are reasonably dressed. It looks like you have a house, probably. He was definitely a middle class individual. And he said that he was dumpster diving to save money, and people were throwing out completely fine food, and he looked at it as a waste. He encouraged me to start doing it because I lived like 3 houses away from that dumpster. So it became a regular thing from that point. Usually we would find fresh produce, so onions, potatoes, peppers, bananas, avocados. Sometimes we would find dish soap, crayons, scrubbies, to clean your dishes with that haven't even been opened. A little bit of everything. In the summer months, there was a lot of flies and wasps, so we would usually avoid the dumpster during the day when it was hot out and go during the night. You wouldn't want to pick out dairy or meat during the summer months just because since it was baking in the sun, it was kind of a sketchy atmosphere. But you could still get non-perishable food items, and a lot of the fresh produce was still fine. And then in the winter, basically anything you could dumpster dive. I will say that things that you shouldn't take, that doesn't happen very often. Usually it is food that is completely edible. I definitely think that it's problematic that they're throwing edible food into the garbage just because of its image and the way that it looks. If it has a bump or a bruise on it, it's immediately thrown into the trash. There's still lots of people who would eat it regardless of the fact that it has a bruise on it if it was discounted. We're not thinking about what we can do with this food before we throw it out, and I think that's incredibly problematic. First of all, it probably takes a month and a half to grow, and someone picks it, someone waters it every day, and especially because it travels so far to get here on a boat or on a car, on a plane, however it gets here, and then is just sifted through and thrown out. There's just a lot of time and energy that goes into that. And that's something that we need to remember and to be grateful for. I definitely think that people view dumpster divers as disgusting. Not everyone, but I have brought up the fact that I've dumpster dove, and people will say things like, "Oh, I'm not surprised," or make some sort of judgment on my character. I've also heard from people who are germaphobes or scared of bacteria that it's incredibly dangerous. You could die from consuming food. You could get food poisoning. And I've actually got food poisoning from food establishments more than I've got food poisoning from dumpsters. When the food ends up in the dumpster, that's why it is disgusting, because it's where you put your garbage. But we need to ask ourselves, why is the food ending up in the place that we put our garbage when it's still perfectly fine to eat? So if we made sure that it was redirected before it got to the dumpster, to communities, people in need, anybody who's willing to take it, then the stigma would be completely gone. People wouldn't view dumpster diving as disgusting because dumpster diving even wouldn't be a thing. I think when we're throwing out food that's edible, it shows that we're a society that's more concerned with the appearance of food and not really caring about the people who need it. If the food is making a journey halfway across the continent, it should probably be ending up on somebody's plate. I think one of the most powerful questions that we need to ask ourselves is, what can we do within our community in order to make this change? And how long did this food take to come into being in order to be in our lives?